Addressing the culture. I'm addressing the culture, huh? Addressing the culture. I'm addressing the culture, huh? Addressing the culture. I'm addressing the culture, huh? Addressing the culture. I'm addressing the culture. We gon' talk about it. Come address the culture. We gon' talk about it. Come address the culture. We gon' talk about it. Come address the culture. We gon' talk about it. Come and address the culture, huh?
Brick by brick, you get your boy Big Wall, and you already know the vibes when you see the big homie next to me, Pstock. You already know what we here to do. We here to address the culture, right, P?
That's right. It's that time to address the culture. We here. You know, I hope everybody is enjoying their day, you know, and chilling. But we here to have, you know, that in-depth, you know, cultural discussion.
Yeah.
On the Filipino martial arts, the Hawaiian martial arts, and everything coming through.
Yeah.
And we're going to bring some new people, and there's some familiar faces, you know, that we like to have, and we have a lot of thanks to them for showing up and bringing the people through, so we can deliver this content and information to everybody. You know.
Yeah, our tour guide, so to speak.
Yeah, tour guide. I tour guides in a world that you won't know. So that's what we bring. You know,
Yeah.
that's the tap in and let you see what's going on. And these people are opening up their lives and their lifestyles to you to go ahead and check it out and follow up and see. You never know. You might want to come over, get some training, get some help. You know, get your mind, body, and soul together.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it is.
That's exactly what it is. It's all about the culture. You know what I mean? And that's really what we're here to do, to kind of bring different viewpoints and different things. When we talk about addressing the culture, we're talking about across the world, across the globe. And we want to give our audience opportunities to understand different cultures, different lifestyles, and different ways you can add some mental, some physical, some spiritual healing into your life. Because, you know, like in today's world, man, it's so much going on. And that's one thing I love about the Filipino martial arts. It covers so many grounds. We talk about the healers. We talk about studying the discipline, the understanding of growth and culture. It's something that's needed because, you know, it is a lack of discipline. It's a lack of people trying to grow and elevate these days. What they call this the microwave generation.
Yeah, the microwave generation.
Because they want it so fast. They want things so fast. They don't want to work for it. They don't want to, you know,
train.
And that's what I love about this culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It grows from tradition. You know, and we're a part of it. I know for me, coming up, the same thing. I had it. Older brothers, uncles, cousins took us out, trained us, especially when they came back from Vietnam and Korean conflicts. You know, they would train us what they were trained.
Yeah.
We had a wooded area around us, so we'd be in the woods. We lived in the woods. That was like our playhouse, you know.
Yeah.
So we booby trap it the whole 9 yards. So, and then that came with hand-to-hand combat training, everything. We was introduced to the nunchucks, to sharigans and blades and everything else, you know. So it was an interesting time, and we got to go under a bunch of different systems as kids. And you know, you see it today, but like you said, the microwave age, everybody wants it fast. To be a sifu or a dojo or instructor today is real hard because you got to deal with the kids if you're dealing with children and the parents.
Yeah.
So you really gotta bridge that gap because the parents are a certain way with their children and everything, and then you're not familiar with how the upbringing of that child, and you're trying to just instill the discipline and the instruction into them. So hats off to it, instructors, teachers, everybody that's dealing with other people's kids, because that's what these men are. They're teachers, they're family men, you know, healers and everything else. So, and that's what we want to bring together and address the culture about it. You know, I mean, you need that. You know, we got away from it's taking a village to raise a child. You know?
Absolutely.
And that's what it does. You know,
absolutely.
I mean, you get in trouble down the street. I used to get my butt whooped whoever catch me.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then by the time I got home, they was waiting for me.
Oh, yeah.
So I was getting whooped 2-3 times, man. Somebody see you along the way. I heard what you did, smacked in the head, while you running home. You know, get on out of here. You know, so don't do that today. You see kids and children and parents, and we talked about that before. Their kids are dead wrong, and they're escalating issues because your child is dead wrong or whatever, and you're coming over here looking as ignorant as can be.
What they call it enabling. Like I've never been an enabler. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna make sure that you understand and be held accountable. I love what you said about bridging the gap, right? You know what I mean? Because that's what these shows is about, bridging the gap. It's so many things that has got lost in translation. We talk about discipline and raising our kids and doing things in the right formation. You know what I mean? And that's what I love about this culture. You know what I mean? Especially when we talk about blurring the color lines. You know what I mean? Because in the Filipino martial art, we got all races. You know what I mean? That's tapping in and learning the tradition and taking it back to their own culture and just and taking it to another level. And that's what I love about it. You know what I mean? And
they're sharing.
And
they're sharing this with you. So that's the big thing. That's the big takeaway. You know, and that's what, and like you said, we try to get, you know, I hope we got those 20-something-year-old parents that watch, that's tuning in, tuned into the culture, so we can help you get tuned in and direct your attention to your kids too. Well, and you helping them getting tuned in to the culture and their future. So you got to stay on top of it, and we bring these things on, these shows together, because these arts are important for defense, for mind and body and everything we talk about, you know, and growth, you know, and discipline. Self-discipline is the biggest thing. Lock up, you know.
It's a lack of it, you know what I mean? So that's what we're gonna do, man. Like that's the phrase for the show, bridging the gap. You know,
bridging the gaps.
And we're gonna do that. We're gonna continue to bridge the gap and come through and address the culture. So y'all already know what we're going to do. We're going to pay some bills, and we're going to be back with Darren. Y'all already know he's our co-host. He's our tour guide. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Angels, Disciples, Stockton. You know, Angels, Disciples, Stockton. You know, if you're in that area, definitely look him up. If you want some training, holler at Darren. You know, he sit down and talk to you and get you started in a class. You know, he gets you moving up. You know,
Legacy 9 going down. Vegas, circus going down. You know what I'm saying? So you already know. So like I said, man, we're gonna pay some bills, and we're gonna be right back to address the culture with the boy Darren Tibet, and we're gonna take it from there. Y'all already know the vibes.
It's 64, boy.
You know, the healers on the court. You know, PALAKA NAMAHOE covers such a scope and a vast. Been so many places. I mean, he's like a 3-4 hour shows. You know, by himself.
The double line, and you know, if it wasn't for the martial art and my teachers and stuff like this, I think I would have been one of those troublemakers that would have ended up on the other side of the law. Take that in, you're late. So I'm stuck, and you got to give up your seat. And the guy goes, oh, and then he just tells me, he goes, okay, you know what? He goes, anytime you want to meet me outside, and I'm like, all right.
Wow. I was asked again to be a part of the healing arts at Legacy, massaging your hands, and that was an interesting thing of finding out how the blood starts to flow into the hands, the color of the blood going into the hands, and actually being able to flex and move your hands, especially when you have arthritis. So, long and the short is, with that, I started learning to do the martial arts learning to do the massage end of that, and I never thought of it as a career.
So the enlightenment is whatever you believe in. The healing is you basically learning how to fix the body. The meditation is learning how to have focus and concentration of what you're doing. And the physical part is to make sure that your body is strong enough that can do the healing. And so to me, that is the pure martial art. And
Scratch.
Van
of the people. That's right. Van of the people.
You know what I'm talking about?
That's what we're talking about. You know,
Yeah.
it is. Right.
Yo, Fan of the people, baby. I'm here.
Fan of the people.
I'm so glad to be here. Big Wall, Pstock. I love y'all, man.
Why are you choosing to represent the people of Southern Illinois?
Well, my reasons are twofold. First of all, I found out that we don't have a dog in the fight right now. If we didn't take this opportunity, take this write-in opportunity to get on the ballot, the Democratic side and the independents wouldn't have somebody that they could support in the race at all. Just by saying, oh, he's a liberal, but think about the word liberal is really like the word liberate, which means to free, right? But if you think about somebody that's conservative and you say they're conservative, you mean that they want to conserve something. So they want to save something. Those aren't bad characteristics on either part, whether you want to liberate and free somebody or if you want to be conservative and save somebody. I think that we all trying to do the right thing.
Right.
What's going on? We are back. Y'all already know. Y'all see who it is. You know what I mean?
It's our main man, Angel's Disciples, the Stockton. You know, we got Grandmaster Darren TIBON here.
Yeah.
Hey, Pstock, Tone Big Walk. What I like to tell you guys right now is Happy Easter. We all here on Easter Sunday, getting on to address the culture. You know, very, very unique show. My pit bulls are going nuts right now, so somebody walking by, okay? I live in Stockton.
I would say you live in Stockton.
We good. Anyway, yeah, here we are Easter Sunday. What better place to be as we're kind of calming it down the whole day to be on Address the Culture, iHipHopTV.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, Pstock, brother Big Tone, for this opportunity, and Audi 19. This is beautiful. I love it. This is pretty much a recap of Hawaii martial arts. A lot of the cats that train in Hawaii is very young kids and men. And then they ended up here on the mainland connecting to so many great martial artists. But just listening to these gentlemen, okay, we got PALAKA NAMAHOE, okay, we got Professor James HUNDON, we got TASI on board here today again, too. And hopefully Alfred Urquidez could tap in with us. But yeah, these guys are all close friends of mine. And what better to hear it from the root sources of those guys that got to train with these great legends and icons from Hawaii here to the mainland, guys. So let's welcome these guys on board. And thank you very much again, guys, for creating this opportunity for legacy. Okay, legacy. All right, brother.
That's what it's about, the legacy. This is the legacy. On Address the Culture.
Yes.
Yep. So we got, let's bring PALAKA on. Palaka's a regular, you know.
Yeah, I haven't seen PALAKA in a while on the show.
He spins the block, you know, all the time, you know, and you know, and he's steeped in the Hawaiian martial arts and the culture as well, you know, and the history. So, you know, and we're going to be tapping in soon in the future with the Hawaiian history shows, which is very important. I want that. That's an important show.
Beautiful.
And tap in and with the Philippine history as well, you know, and get that in there so people can understand, you know, those histories and then the place that in the parts that the United States had involved in that.
Absolutely.
You know, the beauty of this, guys, is I think all three gentlemen are 70 and over. So they go way back, you know, in the early days, you know, as children, 60 years ago, you know, and the unique story of Professor James HUNDON and who he has connected with. You know, his teacher was the late Grandmaster Wally J. His teacher was Okazaki Sensei in Hawaii. So, you know, Professor James got a very unique story too. Palaka, the whole history, the melting pot of Hawaii. You know, he has touched bases with all of that. And so has Asialo, you know.
TASI, yeah.
Connecting with and living with the late Grandmaster Tony Ramos of Kaji Kempo. So, you know, these three men have had the opportunity to train directly from the Grandmasters of Hawaii, in Hawaii, you know, and here. Like I said, you know, these guys sharing their stories, who they connected with, who their teachers were. This is real legacy right here, you know, and I couldn't be more proud to be a part of this, guys. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Man, no problem, man. That's what we here, man. We are going to keep pushing the knowledge because that's what we about, right? We're trying to grow and get some understanding, you know what I'm saying? So we ain't going to hold it up too much longer. We're going to bring in Palaka, you know what I mean? And so he can go ahead, break it down. What's going on?
Palaka, brother Palaka.
NAMAHOE, you know, great healer, grandmaster, you know, and you know, a Hawaiian historian, and we're looking forward to that, to tap into that. So Palaka, and you've you know, been over it before, but let our viewers know again, you know, but then because I want to save, you know, you get the right information because I want to save a lot of the information for the Hawaiian History Show, which probably is going to be more than an hour segment and could probably be broken into segments, but we want to get that covered as well.
Well, I want to thank you so much. It's an honor being on the show with DARREN and TASI and Professor HUNDON and Pstock and Big Wall. Thank you so much for allowing me to express my feelings and stuff about where I come in from in the Hawaiian martial art part of what we're doing. When I started training with my teacher, my first teacher was with my relatives, but I trained in, you know, I started in Aikido and Judo back in Pro City. Then I started, you know, and then I started adventuring into other arts, which was the Kempo, the Hawaiian Kempo, and I trained under Maestro Rudy Orlando, who was one of the well-known martial artists in his time back in Hawaii. But he knew a lot of the old guys, and his first teacher was Professor Mario Tiwanak. He trained actually where Puiki is, in that area. He trained on the North Shore. He trained in Haleiwa, and that's where he started with that group over there in Haleiwa. And so he rose up in the rank up to a 6th-degree belt, and then he started just figuring out things and then just going his way and thanking, you know, his teachers that taught him back then. And then he started just training other people and guys like me. And so I was mostly his Kempo. I was his Kempo guy, doing a lot of the breaking competitions, doing a lot of self-defense. But the way that he taught us it was part of the culture. It was part of our culture, that the way it wasn't more about self-defense. Even though the self-defense, the stuff was in there, it was more about the culture. As culture, not only in the Hawaiian martial art, but of Hawaii. And so we learned how to, you know, to be disciplined, how to help our family. It was all about respecting each other in Hawaii, and no matter where we went throughout the world, it was about total respect about our family, and to share and always help one another, and no matter what we did. So it was mostly about that. But we did train hard. We did get bruises. you know, there's a lot of ditjao, a lot of medicine that was made that we had to go figure out how we can get it. And I remember going to a lot of different seafoods that I knew in Chinatown to go get some of this jiao to put on your hands, body after training or before that. And because of the intensity of our training, I mean, the squats that the exercise that we did, it was just a lot. And so, you know, training with Maestro Rudy Orlando, it was intense. And where we trained at is we actually trained in this valley called Mauna Loa Valley. And this valley is a very spiritual valley because a lot of the first hula was actually taught in this valley, and it's very very spiritual. So you could actually see certain things inside as you would train. I remember one night we had one of my friend's girlfriend who was going through art school at the University of Hawaii, and she happened to draw, because this tree, I don't know if you know what a monkey pod tree is, but it's a tree that spreads. It looks like a real big canopy when it opens up, and so out of all the 12 trees that were there, this one was just a little lighter. It wasn't as dark as the other trees were. This one was just a little lighter. And then Maisha would tell her, and so we would tell her, like, out of all the trees, you can draw all the trees, but don't draw that one. And she goes, why? And she goes, well, there's something there that I don't know if you would understand what's there. And so she didn't pay attention. She kind of laughed it off, and then she drew it. And then all of a sudden, about 45 minutes later, we heard her screaming in the car. And we came running, and she showed the picture to Maestro, and he started laughing. And what she drew, it was a person of a giant that was living in a tree. And he started drawing. She started like screaming, and like he started laughing, and we go, see, we told you don't draw that. You can draw any other tree except don't draw that one.
Wow.
So that tree was about that person guarding this sacred area of where we were training at. Mm-hmm. And so this is the kind of place that we trained. So it was mostly about understanding our land, our Aina, and understanding what goes on and the warriors that actually fought during. So Mauna Loa Valley or Mauna Loa, in that whole area, it is very sacred to a lot of the Hawaiian people that grew up in that area or know of that area and stuff like that. So, oh yeah, and then the same teacher actually taught me my FMA, my Filipino martial art. And so, but I wasn't, so I learned that part, but I was mostly his Kempo guy, mostly his guy that would show or run the class for the Kempo. And then when I had the opportunity to, because my job brought me up here to California, I was asked to open up a school when I came up here. And then when I started competing, and then I asked him, can I compete in tournaments? So I started competing in the Long Beach, and that's when I met like Alfred Akitis, and I met all those guys, all the great martial art I would hear about from back home in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And I met like Ted Tabura, Bill Rosaki, and I started like, and they knew who my teacher was from back at home. Like, oh, who did you train under? I said, oh, Maestro. Oh, Orlando. And I go, yeah. And then they go, oh, so you come from that strong background. I go, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, you can't lie.
Yeah, Tiwanak, Mario Tiwanak, Cha 3, and Kachikempo. Yeah, that's who I came under. So Mario Tiwanak a lot of guys in Chaw 3, the way that we would get promoted once we go through what we had to learn was we had to demonstrate our breaking techniques. Just but it wasn't board. It was just basically firehouse bricks that we had to or breaking center blocks.
Yeah.
So we stuff like I would do stuff like stick my finger in a shot glass and break 5 bricks without breaking the shot glass.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Turn an upside down beer bottle, slap it from the bottom, break the brick without breaking where you're drinking from with their beer bottle.
Wow.
Put like 3-4 raw eggs in my hand and back slap it without breaking the raw eggs in my hand. Just, and then power hitting, power striking the bricks, So, I would go to these like a K1 competition was run by one of Master Cho, who did a lot of the Korean martial art, but he would have a division called Master Breaking. So they would use their type of they would have to set up their bricks. Like you would go there and they said, okay, out of the best 10 that we have here, the best brick, whatever hit that you want to use, you can, whatever most that you can hit. And so everybody went, and I was one of the last. And so what I did is there's a gentleman up north. His name was Professor Novak. And this man that learned wherever he learned his Chinese system from, he was a Caucasian Haoli guy. But the unique thing about him was you could name a brick, any brick that he would stack up or you would stack up, like anywhere between 10 to 15 to 20 to 25 bricks. And you can tell them what brick you want to break. And if you tell them, oh, just break the 15th brick from the stack, he will slap the brick from the top and only break that one brick that you ask him to do.
Wow.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I would talk to like him. He said, I go, where did you learn this stuff from? He goes, well, when I was working in a coal mine back where he were from the Midwest, he said that his partner was this Chinese guys that worked with him in the coal mine. And he said he learned a lot from these guys. And then I'm on his path to learn. So I got to meet with Professor Novak and then some of the great not only Japanese, but all these other type of breakers that did it. And so, and one of them was a guy named Joe Yohashi. Now, Professor Yohashi, Uncle Joe, the way that he learned it is he learned almost the same way back home in Hawaii, learn how to break, from the different, from Japanese to Chinese breaker, Korean breakers. We had all kinds of different martial artists there, but everybody came as one. And so everything was taught, just like what Adam was saying last time you had him on the show. It wasn't taught like in different, it was all taught together as one. And so so when Uncle Joe, what he was known for is he was known as the ice crusher. Him and a guy named Tiggy, Sensei Tiggy. And so he would come and he would break like big ice blocks with his head. He would go break them. But the thing about Uncle Joe was he was Samoan. Joe was Samoan. So Uncle Joe was telling a story about when he was young. He said his dad left real father and his mom, and so his mom met a gentleman, a Japanese guy, and so they started dating. And then he said, before I ask you to marry me, when I want to marry you, I want to marry everything about you. So he actually went to he found out where Uncle Joe's dad was, and he went to go talk to him, and asked him that if he could adopt his son and get his name. And so Uncle Joe took on his last name, but he was flooded Samoan. But Uncle Joe, he was known as the Ice Crusher, and so I would do a lot of him doing demonstrations of breaking or power breaking or different type of breaking that we did, you know, in different competitions. Actually did one in 1999. It was called Aloha Fest down in Long Beach, California. And we did a breaking. And so I think I still have a couple videos where I did, and I did a couple at when Darren, Grandmaster Darren and I were running the Disneyland competition. And I was in charge of the breaking division, and I would do demonstrations on breaking divisions where I don't know if Darren remembers, but I set up 10 bricks, and then I put a center block on the top of the 10 bricks.
I remember.
And then underneath, I put down 2 cartons of 12 eggs on each side, so 24 eggs total. And so the trick was it wasn't breaking the brick, getting on the raw eggs without smashing the raw eggs. So I was putting my weight on both of the eggs. And so what I did is I set my hand on top, slap the center bricks, split the center bricks, break all 10 bricks, breaking the eggs that I was standing on. And then people go, oh, that's hard. Eggs, and I'd walk up to the audience and I would take both cotton eggs and I'd slap it in front of them. They're like, and it would spread all over the place. Man, and people ask, how do you do that? I go, it's I can't tell you that. I go,
what they say, if I tell you, I have to kill you.
Kill you.
Yeah. And then I did another one because of Uncle David Nuiva, one of the original Beach Boys that were that Adam was talking about down in Waikiki. He had over 300 lives that he saved during Waikiki during his time as being lifeguard down Waikiki.
Wow.
He was one of the instrumental people in martial art in Hawaii, and a lot of people looked up to him, and a lot of people knew who Uncle Dave was. But he was one of the first class that graduated from Sensei Okazaki with Professor Hundon's teacher, which is Wally J. He was actually the first class with Wally J, I believe, and Sid Kufarak and Kalani and Kalani Charles. And so these guys were like wrestlers, or they did their thing. But Uncle Dave, he was well known for surfing, for healing, martial art back home in Hawaii. And then he went to the mainland because he was hired Walt Disney to run the security for Disneyland and for Disneyland Hotel. So that's how he too. But we learned a lot from him. My healing stuff came from Uncle Dave, but also from our other side of the family. But Uncle Dave was a big instrument in some of the Kaji Kempo guys that you would talk about from Uncle Dave. So Uncle Dave Nuiva was a great. So I got to learn a lot from these guys and from my teacher. Then my original Kempo teacher, Maestro Orlando, and I had a little disagreement, and I kind of stepped away from his system, and I went under a gentleman named Cedro Sonny Gascon, who is one of the first line of black belts out of Kaji Kempo. So I for him, and I received my highest rank that I hold today under him, which is a 9th degree black belt under the Karl Zempo Go Shinjitsu, under his style. And so I did a lot with him and traveled with him and Adam's teacher, Bill Ozaki, all those guys, they all knew each other. They actually opened up the first school down in Burbank called Pine Kempo. He was the guys that they worked out with was a gentleman named Johnny Leone that actually acted. He was one of the guys in Kung Fu. He was actually Master Tay. He was Master Tay, Johnny Leone. And so, but a lot of the guys that they would train at the school would be Robert Conrad of Wild Wild West and Connie, I think it's Connie Stevens, the singer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the legacy for me, man. Like, it's constantly.
Those guys train a lot of the people, and that's how they got into the business of the entertainment, is through what they did back then, you know, starting with Uncle Bill and all those guys. And then, so when Uncle Sonny would come to California, I had to go pick him up at LAX and then take him to his, Adam and I was just talking about this the other day. I said, yeah, I would have to take him to his sister's house. And then all of a sudden, I take him there about 2 o'clock, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, all these old guys would show up, all these old, the guys we would hear about, like, would come to the sister's house, and they would sit there and just talk story like the old days. And they would be about, it'd be a bunch of them. And then they wouldn't stop talking till like 4 or 5 o'clock the next morning. And I would ask, hey, can I go inside and go sleep for a little while? They go, no, I need you out of here so you can listen to all these stories.
Hey, that's the only way you can keep the legacy going.
Keep the legacy going.
Oral history.
That's exactly what we doing.
Very
today.
important. That's what
very important. And we're going to keep the story going. We're going to take us a quick break, and we're going to bring in some more legendary people that's going to tell their story. We're going to bring in Brother James. You know what I'm saying? Professor James, and he's going to add to the story and add his flavor. You know what I'm saying? Y'all already know the vibes. We are here to address the culture. We'll be right back.
Here we go.
All right. Thank you.
December of 2016, that's the last time we saw. We did an intervention tape. And the intervention would show more detail about what was going on, how Jocelyn looked. She didn't look like herself. She looked like she had lost around she weighed about 90 pounds. And Jocelyn was roughly average about 120, somewhere like that. She looked totally different. And it really tore my heart up to see my daughter look that way.
You think you've heard the truth, you think you know it all, but you haven't heard anything until you hear Tim Savage's side of the story. On the next Let's Talk with Bigg and Lizette, we sit down with Timothy Savage, Jocelyn's father, to get his side of the story. Be sure to tune in. Is there anything you want to say to your daughter?
Here we go. We're back.
We are back. How you doing, Brother James? How you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm fine. Thank you, man. You don't know how hard it's been me trying to get on the show. I've been frustrated for the past 3 weeks trying to get to you guys. You know, I was like, oh man, it ain't working. But you know what? Thank goodness for Easter, man, because it worked today.
Yeah. That's big. That's big.
So for everybody who might not know who you are, won't you give us a little history on your journey and just how everything has come full circle for you as well?
All right. Well, I first started in the martial arts at a young age before I even know what the hell I was doing. My stepfather was a boxer in the military, so he started training me a little bit in fundamental boxing. And then it was something about martial arts that was always fascinating to me. I came from a very religious family, so it was always about turning the other cheek during that time, you know, and I started realizing early on, is like my cheek was not the one to keep turning. My early teacher, I was in junior high school, and I had a classmate that had been in the arts a long time, and he was like 14 years old, but he was already a black belt. So we became very, very good friends. And I remember he used to come through, you know, the apartment where I stayed with my parents, and we used to get together and mess around, you know. And I remember we sparred a little bit, and I remember me cutting him over his eye. And that was a lesson I'll never forget, because he just tore my butt up. But but after that, he said, "Man, you have a very natural ability about you." He said, "You should really think about, you know, pursuing the arts and so forth and so on." So that was in Yamaguchi system during that time. So I did a little bit of Yamaguchi, and went from Yamaguchi and went from there. I got my first color belt, which was a red belt, was in Taekwondo. And then I went from there, went into Chinese Kempo. So my first black belt came in Chinese Kempo under Ken Lucio and Grandmaster Ray Hernandez, which was in Hayward. And then during that time also, of course, the Bruce Lee epidemic hit. And it was like that just woke up everybody. And I became fascinated with Bruce. And I was working at General Motors in '72. And I remember they had a gentleman there that was called Tommy T. And I remember seeing Tommy T. And Tommy T. was actually a spitting image of Bruce Lee. He worked in the truck department. He moved like him. He moved like he was hyper like him. I mean, I was like, wow. But I had a couple of other, yeah, it was amazing. And because everybody wanted to be a part of Bruce Lee. I mean, Bruce changed everybody's fighting game. You know, he kind of opened things up. He said, "Hey man, use what's useful," and da 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 da. And you know, he's the first one that you can actually say started breaking tradition. And when he started breaking tradition, he started showing it in a lot of different ways. So anyway, I went from there, and then I had a couple of people that was there from General Motors that I started training with privately in the garage, who had trained directly from Bruce doing his early teachings in Oakland. And I got my first Mukjan dummy from a gentleman that made one for me, that I even traveled with that and took that to New York. But that was a very, very exciting experience. And I must say, some of the best experiences of training in martial arts was in the garage, various garages, you know, because you'd be surprised of some of the people that came through that had so much knowledge in the martial arts, but they weren't interested in being famous, but they had a whole bunch of knowledge. So that was my first introduction to the early June Fun system back in the day, before Bruce called it Jeet Kune Do. Then I had, I got my first black belt from Chinese Kempo. And then from there, I had a student that said, "Wow, man, you know, some of these moves you do reminds me of Great Grandmaster Jay, how he does his throws. Do you know who that is?" And I was like, "No, I don't know who that is." And he was teaching at the College of Alameda at that time. So I never will forget, I told my student, I said, "Okay, I'm going to come down to College of Alameda to meet Grandmaster Jay." And we met, and we had a nice conversation standing on the side. He asked me what I did. And at that time, this is when we was all in the 70s and mid 80s, you know, sparring and competition of going to tournaments were very, very big. It was huge. So, And the only safety equipment you had at that time was wrapping tape around your fist and putting some tape around the ball of your feet. Okay. And that was safety gear. So that was before Ron Reed came out with the safety kick and punch. So, so anyway, so I met Grandmaster Jay. We talked. I showed, he asked me about what I was doing, and I told him where I came from, which was Chinese Kempo. I did a couple of hip twists because I was doing early June fun. He said, "Oh, that's just like my throw that I do," and he showed a couple of throws, and then he put me in a couple of finger locks, and that was it. That was it for me, because the timing, I had just come to a point, you know, where I said, well, every situation doesn't call for a punch. Every situation doesn't call for a kick. So if you're in your tuxedo in a suit or something like that and you're out, you don't want to be throwing no kick and punches, you know. And I was just at that transitioning point that Grandmaster Jay came at the right time. And so I joined. I started attending the College of Alameda for a while. And then right after that, I think within 2 classes, I started going to the home dojo, which was right at the basement of his house. And so I was there, I think it was early 77. 77, I met him in 78. I went to Canadian National Exhibitions with him. And that's when he started creating small circle jiu-jitsu. So small circle jiu-jitsu was not recognized as an art. It was only a theory in the beginning. So I was fortunate enough to be to meet him and be a part of that as he was developing small circle jiu-jitsu. And I was really the only real fighter that he had coming from karate tournaments and things. So I used to teach sparring techniques and things like that, because there were no sparring in the home dojo. You know, you did kata form, and then Grandmaster Jay went into the small circle theory, and that's when the finger locks and started coming along. So anyway, we went on from there. I went to Canadian National Exhibition. I got most outstanding fighter there, and our next trip from there was going to Trinidad. We demonstrated, and I used to compete. We would demonstrate together, and then I would compete in the tournaments, because a lot of times it was also what they would call a world tournament or United Open tournament. So while we would demonstrate in small circle jiu-jitsu, I would also compete in the sparring, to the point that after a while, people started to think that small circle jiu-jitsu included the striking, and the striking was the part that I brought into it during that time. So when I moved, and the way I found more of that out, in '86, I ended up moving to New York, and I trained with Great Grandmasters Moses Powell, Little John Davis, Professor Crossan, and a couple other gentlemen there. And I kept contact with some people that were still back here at the home dojo, and then they would tell me that after I had left, people were coming to visit Grandmaster Jay's school to learn the fighting aspect of what we were doing, because they thought that the striking was part of it, and actually it wasn't. So a lot of people came and went, but Grandmaster Jay started to really, travel all over the place. He hooked up with George Dillman out of Connecticut. He also hooked up with Remy Priestes, and it was 3 of them that started traveling. They were like similar to the three the hard way. So what happened? Grandmaster Jay shared small circle jiu-jitsu with Master Dillman and with Remy Priestes. And I remember early Remy Priestes' technique was very, very crude, you know. And he started training with Grandmaster Jay for a while they were traveling the country, in and out of the country. And all of a sudden, it just turned magical. Wow. Yeah, his locking, you know, he adapted Grandmaster Jay's principle of locking and Remy Priest's locking just changed. So based on that, you know, we went on. I stayed in New York 8 years training with the Doc Powell and Little John and those guys. And when I came back home, that's when I ended up developing small circle Jew trap boxing. I don't know if you were aware, but Grandmaster Jay and Bruce Lee were very, very close. And they were close to the point that Bruce used to come to Grandmaster Jay's house, and they would talk stories and theories and so forth and so on. Now, the interesting part about that is that Grandmaster Jay started kind of paying attention to the small circle, to the 1-inch punch. He started looking at that, but he never ended up, you know, looking at some of the other stuff that he did because he locked into what he was doing. But Bruce, if you remember I think it was the Game of Death, where he fought Jabbar and he fought some of those other guys. That is the first movie that he ever showed any grappling, because he grappled with Lou Alcindor, Jabbar, and he choked him out and he did some other things. Well, all those moves that Bruce did came off the boards at Great Grandmaster Jay's school. So that was very, very interesting. So I just continued to do my thing was to connect the dots between Bruce and small circle jiu-jitsu. And of course, you know, I was with Grandmaster Jay for 35 years. Even when I moved to New York, Grandmaster Jay would call me and say, Jim, I'm coming to New York, but I need to go to Connecticut, or I need to go here or there. And we would hook up and I would travel with him. So I was, although I had moved in New York and I was in New York.
So while he's figuring that out, what we're going to do, we're going to take us a quick break. And we're going to be back. We're going to bring Adam James and TASI in.
Are you back?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Okay, so look, we're going to take us a break, and we're going to be right back with Address the Culture, all right?
All right, hold on.
Out on HipHopTV.com on YouTube. Shit is fire. Check out iHipHopTV.com on YouTube.
We are back. We are back.
All right. We got some more familiar faces here. We have Adam James and TASI. You know, glad Jens can jump in while Professor HUNDON gets everything going. So now it's like we're bringing everything together. You know, we have Adam James and PALAKA mentioned, and you had mentioned when you was on the last show about the martial arts and the Rainbow Warriors from there. So it's interesting for you to put it together and let the viewers know as well, you know, just to recap everything and to tie it all in.
Yes, aloha, everybody. It's great to see you all. Happy Easter.
Aloha.
Hello, Adam.
Happy
Easter.
Great to see everybody.
You too.
Well, that was really inspiring, what I was hearing. And so many great martial artists have walked this journey. And it's an honor to be on the panel today amongst everybody else. And one name that I heard earlier was Al Novak. And, you know, Al was, he was part of the Jimmy Lee, James Yim Lee, a martial arts training family, if you will. He and Jimmy trained extensively together. And, you know, it was interesting when I was talking to Leo about Al and why Al wasn't more connected to Bruce Lee. And he said, you know, Al and Bruce didn't get along real well. They weren't on the same page, but he had a lot of respect for Bruce, and Bruce likewise for Al. But it was really Jimmy. You know, Jimmy Lee doesn't get a lot of the credit he deserves because he was so willing to empty his cup and receive, you know, the tea from Bruce Lee. But he was brilliant. You know, he not only was he a great kung fu master, but he was also a bodybuilder. You know, he was into weightlifting, and he was into breaking, and that's where, you know, Al had a tremendous connection there with Jimmy. What's up, James? Great to see you again,
how
brother.
are you?
Been a long time, my brother. You know,
yeah, it's so great. And for our viewers, if you don't notice, you know, these guys know each other and know of each other, and it's great, you know, to have it, to tie it all in, to have these guys come in with it. That's why we love these shows, you know. So
it's beautiful. They're beautiful.
Yes. And it was great hearing about Wally J. You know, Wally was a tremendous gentleman. And, you know, one thing that he always took with him wherever he went was the spirit of aloha. I had a chance to meet him and work with him back in Hawaii because his two nephews were black belts in the Hawaii Shinkan school that I was part of with Mike De La Vega and Robert and Randy Kuhau. And Wally J was in town, and he's like, oh, I'm going to come down to your school and I'll train everybody for the week. And so we had a chance to work with him, and he was just a fantastic martial artist, but even more so, a tremendous human being, just a great guy. Yeah. And, you know, he just loved Hawaii. He loved that spirit of aloha. And wherever he went, he was sharing, you know, just sharing from his heart, from his soul, giving the knowledge, but also giving the heart, you know, and that's where it's about.
Absolutely. Now I love the fact that we got all of you guys on here because we talking about just across colorblind, color lines, and everything. You know what I mean?
Sir.
So,
Yeah.
like, and this is something that's unusual. You know what I mean? And we want to talk about it. We're going to address the culture. We're not ducking no smoke. So I want to ask everybody on the screen, and you all can answer this. What has been some of the trials and tribulations that you guys have had being different colors, trying to tap into martial arts and trying to be a part of a culture that you clearly have passion for? But we all know color gets in the way of things on this planet. You know what I mean? So how were you guys able to overcome that to be successful in your own right?
I would love to be started. I would love to start with that one.
Please
do. So this was my most horrible experience. After spending all that time with Grandmaster Jay, and he retired, all right, his son took over.
Yes.
What ended up happening, his son tried to erase my history. So after Grandmaster Jay died, they had his funeral ceremony. I was not invited to the early meeting of students because we had a falling out because I wouldn't do what he wanted me to do. And when I got to it was at Alameda High School in the auditorium. And when I got to the auditorium, he had all the pictures up of everybody that ever trained with Grandmaster Jay but mine.
Wow.
There was no picture of me to be seen at all.
And you said you trained up under him for
35 years.
35 years.
Wow.
Well,
a matter of fact, he called me, Grandmaster Jay called me son.
Wow.
Yes. There's videos of that.
Wow.
Extensive videos of late Grandmaster Wally J referring to James HUNDON as his son. So, you know, that was pretty sad when I had found that out for myself. You know, well, you know, this exists in a lot of different martial arts. Even exists in the FMA world.
Yeah.
I experienced similar, you know, but what I did is I took the high road on everything and I never stopped and I kept on going. So let time speak for itself.
Yes.
And I believe that's a situation that, you know, many of us experience. There's two routes to go. You know, when people attack you and your credibility, your honor, you either fold up and give up, or you take the high road and you keep on going.
That's right.
So I'm part of that.
That's why we address the culture on this, you know, and come with the questions, you know. So,
but you know, one thing you will find out in these kind of situations, the people that hate you most will not confront you face to face.
Oh no!
They become keyboard warriors. They utilize the media to destroy people. But when you catch them alone or catch them right, snot bubble in the nose, hugging a teddy bear.
That's true. That's true.
Right there.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying?
Maybe fold like a card table. Huh?
I hate to bring this up, but you know, what you got to understand is me and Brother James Horn are very close. We're brothers. Okay.
Yeah.
Just like I feel the same way with everybody on today's show.
Yeah.
You know, Palaka, me and TASI, or Brother Adam, great guy. You know, we got history with Legacy, late Grandmaster Leo Palm. But I think all of us deal with that in the martial art world. But the good thing is we're all on this show today, right? Mm-hmm. We might have dealt with something 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, but it's never stopping.
Right.
No.
You know, either you have it in your heart or you don't have it at all. The beauty is none of us ever stopped.
Right.
None of us ever stopped. You know?
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, getting back in our younger days, you know, let's say, when I say young, maybe in your 30s or 40s, you know,
yeah.
We're open to challenge.
Yeah.
You don't like me, I don't like you. Come on, let's meet up somewhere. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and once you get 50, 55 and older, you start looking at everything in a whole different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you do wonder, why does this guy hate me so much? And then you look at what they've accomplished, and they really accomplished nothing. That's why they hate.
Jealousy.
They can't do. They can't do it. And it's sad, but it's real.
Right.
It is.
It is. It's sad, but it's real.
Very much so. Like, and that's one thing that never really made sense to me when we talk about the color lines that we judge each other for something that we can't change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's something, not the content of your character. If somebody does something to you and gives you a reason not to like them, that's different. But just judging somebody based off of the color of their skin, it just never made sense to me.
Yes, but with social media, you know, popping off, you know, 15 years ago, you know, and a lot of people utilize that to try to ruin people's credibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's where we have lost old school. Okay, old school. But I'll tell you this: there is guys out there that will run their mouth, but when you confront them face to face, they'll be happy to sue you. And they'll live a life like that, happy to sue you. Go ahead, touch me. I'll sue you.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And that's why, you know, I think the circle of people, the circle of friends that I deal with, you know, I consider them brothers. Okay, I call them brothers. Okay, and that's why, you know, you may work with hundreds, if not thousands, of people, but at the same time, your trusted friends, your people, you know, we select them. And we create shows like this to address and talk about it. You know, I mean, I never thought I'd be talking about this on the show.
Yeah.
But we've all dealt with it. We've all dealt with it. And to be honest with you, my enemies, I think they're going to wait until I'm in a wheelchair or can't walk and then challenge me.
Right.
Hey, man, TIBON in a wheelchair, can't even walk. I'm going to challenge them.
And that's funny. Now, I have a question because it was approached to me by some viewers that have been watching the series. And one viewer asked what was the difference between Kempo and Kaja Kempo, because they kept hearing those terms. So they wanted to know what the difference was. They wasn't sure.
There's no difference in how it's spelled with the N or with the M. It's still the same. Kaja Kempo is just, you know, it's just where you come from. Like what Adam and his friend, when they did the Okinawan or Japanese Kempo, that's more, you know, that's more of a mixture. You know, they added it that spiritual side to it, all that, the temple, going through their protocols. The Kaji Kempo is just more of a combat situation that the Adriano and Joe Imperato put together with a lot of the other guys that added their flares to it. But it was more made of a self-defense type of system.
Yes, Kaji Kempo is the eclectic martial art that is a combination of karate, jiu-jitsu, Kempo, and Bo for boxing, Chinese boxing, or Kung Fu.
But
and it was created by 5 guys back in Hawaii who called themselves the Black Belt Society. The goal was to train together from different martial arts, but come out with a martial art that combined the best techniques of all of them. And the goal was to take the judo, jiu-jitsu techniques and fight against a guy who was Kung Fu and say, okay, now what would you do against this? How would you combat that? Okay, now we're going to take that little piece and we're going to start to build this amazing martial art. It was based purely on street fighting, on self-defense. No BS, no competition, just pure, fight for your life. And that was Kaji Kempo. And then the Kempo, there's really 2 lines, if you will. There's the Okinawan Ryukyu Kempo. Well, actually, also you have the Shorinji Kempo from Japan, and with Doshinso. And then you had James Matose. And James Matose, most of us line our Kempo history back to James and what he did and how he taught Professor Chow. And then Professor Chow's instruction to Adriano Imperato and the Imperato brothers, and then Ed Parker and down the road. But before we get off the other subject, I just want to share something with all of you about heart and how we're really all in this together. Yeah. So one of my favorite stories that I heard growing up in Hawaii was about the night marchers. And the night marchers were the spirits of the ali'i and the warriors. And at night, they would walk sometimes together on the hallowed grounds. And if you were ever somebody who saw them, you were supposed to react as an ancient Hawaiian. And that was that you were not supposed to look at the ali'i. You're supposed to run to the side of the road, put your head on the ground, and not look up. But there was a story that I'd heard about a young woman who'd married a haole, a white guy, and how this young man loved her so much. He loved Hawaiian culture. It was like what Bradford was saying. If I'm going to marry you, I'm going to marry all of you. So he dedicated himself to Hawaiian culture. He learned the language. He loved Hawaii so much. And then he was drafted into the military. And he went to Vietnam, and he died there. But the young woman had not been told yet. And she was out with her mother walking. And as she saw the ali'i, she ran to the side of the road, and the mother and she put her head down. But she had something telling her to look up. And she looked up, and she saw her husband, the haole, walking with the night marchers. That struck me when I heard that story, that it tells us that we're all one. We can all journey together. We can learn martial arts, no matter what our background is. And we can be pure and true. It's not something that is, it's passed on to father and son. It's something that's passed on from teacher to student, from somebody who really wants to learn and somebody who really knows the stuff and is ready to share and help.
But let me add upon that.
Yes, please.
It is on the culture.
Yes.
Because of the culture and the way that as Hawaiians of and accepted this man. And because he accepted one of our sisters and one of our blood into taking her and learned everything about that. It's about all of our cultures, no matter who we marry, no matter who we are, as long as the love and the pu'uvai, which is their heart, and the uini, which is their spirit, comes together. And when that happens, then no matter the ali'is or the ali'i nui or the koa, which warriors, that will they will protect whoever they feel that is worthy in their clan. So that's connected to me in that way, because each of us come from a warrior background.
Absolutely.
Yes. We all together in that area, no matter who we learn from, no matter what we did, as long as we have that spirit and that love, that mana with us, and that aloha, we will far with that.
Absolutely. It's all about the content of your character. And that's why I brought that up, because like I said, we got all colors of the rainbow, you know what I mean? And right here on this platform. And this just shows that if you got dedication, if you got heart, no matter what's your trials and tribulations, you can be successful. You know what I'm saying? Like Brother James said, his whole history tried to get white.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I know you guys from the Filipino martial arts, like you guys fight for that, like tradition, making sure your lineage is passed on and knowing, and like just 35 years just because of the colors of skin is being trying to be white. And that can stop you. You know what I mean? But that kind of goes into your training, right? Being able to fight through stuff and learn stuff.
Right.
So it just all comes full circle. So I just wanted to know you guys' different experiences because I see it made you guys tougher. It made you guys more disciplined. It made you guys fight for what you wanted to learn and being able to pass it on. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's so true.
That's big. That's big.
Yeah.
What's the direction? Would you like to see it go in the future? I remember Adam has the Rainbow Warrior thing, and that was one of those things. But from everybody on the panel, what direction? How would you like to see the future?
Just across the board.
Yeah, across the board in general. How would you like to see that go?
You know, the martial art to me is a way of life, but it's a way of being peaceful and being lovable. I mean, just look at those guys back then that started from China, from India, or when they went across. It wasn't about violence. It was about being peaceful, showing the love, just being out there and helping one another. But if there were times that the battle had to come up, then at least you know how to defend yourself or fight. But basically, it was just being peaceful and just being just to be a servant to others and to be with them and help them and to guide them and leadership. It's all that, and this is where we learn this in our martial art training, being disciplined, being respectful, being diligently to our teachers and just, and showing leadership and taking responsibility to who we are.
Yeah. Same question for the rest of the panel.
For the rest of everyone else.
What direction would you guys like to see just everything
future
move?
Well, if I may add to that, going back to how, and I'm going to say we were raised, because I can see a lot of our heads shaking in terms of, yes, where's the common courtesies? Yeah. Where are the excuse me's? Where is the pardon me? Where is the thank you? Where is the I'm sorry? Where are all those things that shows that you are polite? You know how to be polite. I look at a lot of the generation now. They talk about you gotta respect me. You gotta respect me, but they don't know how to give respect.
They don't know how to give respect. No.
Put some respect on my name is what they say. Put some respect on my name is what they say.
Exactly. And unfortunately, that doesn't last very long.
Yeah, talk about it.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, it doesn't last very long, because we know we have a lot of our young generation that probably was going to be some type of trendsetter or whatever that are no longer with us. Only because of some of the ways that they looked at things, thought, or how they handled certain things. So I would like to see those courtesies brought back up, because that's what we grew up with. I know Grandmaster Jay didn't have a mean bone in his body, not over the 35 years that I knew him. And I had some other teachers that was the same way. They cared, they shared, they wanted to see people grow. Yeah. They encouraged you.
Yeah.
If they took you under their wing, they wanted to help you. They saw something, they wanted to help you develop that upper being that they saw in you, or that other level of that light. Yeah. So that's what I would love to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like that. Reach one, teach one. It's about the knowledge. How about you, Adam?
Yes, I really am excited about the positive growth in our industry, in the martial arts community, and the world. I feel that we have become closer, more knowledgeable about ourselves and each other. And I go back to James Matosi again, because he is our foundation as Kempo, and he would often talk about the symbol, the Kenko. And the idea was, of course, it's the covered fist, but he also implemented another component of it. He said, because when he first started teaching, it was right after World War II. It was right when the atomic bomb had entered our consciousness. There was now a weapon that could kill tremendously. And so he would say that our fist is like the nuclear bomb. It's very dangerous. It's very powerful. We have to have great respect for it. And we also need to cover it with love. And make sure that we're not being braggarts and boastful. That we are being arrogant.
Humble.
Yeah,
exactly. We have the humble attitude. We cloak it with kindness and love, and that's where I feel that we are moving in a positive direction in a lot of ways. Now, of course, you know, last episode we talked about MMA. I love MMA. I teach MMA, and I think that there's tremendous growth in our greater martial arts world because of it. However, there is, of course, there's a competition component of it, a braggart component of it, which is embraced and trumpeted and championed in that field. And so I'd like to see a continuation of the martial arts spirit in that area so that we all can benefit from it, because they are in a lot of ways on the spotlight for our industry, for martial arts.
That's real talk. That's real talk. You know, that's real talk. And I do like the fact that also the growth in movie industry, television industry, that's growing even more with the popularity of the James Bonds and the Jason Bournes and the John Wicks and the Matrix. It's incorporated.
Absolutely. And then the other one I just want to mention is Shang-Chi. I don't know if anybody here saw Shang-Chi, but it is an amazing movie. The martial arts are phenomenal. And for the first time, we have a Chinese superhero, you know, kind of like Superman, but he's Shang-Chi, and he's amazing. And I think that's just fantastic.
I did see Shang-Chi. That was good.
It was.
You know, so and all of those things, you know, growing up, I grew up on Kung Fu, you know. We had Kung Fu with David Carradine. And then when Bruce Lee came on the scene with Enter the Dragon in '75, that's when Kung Fu theater became more popular too. That's when everybody started turning. I mean, there was guys walking around that was masters on Kung Fu theater. There was masters on Kung Fu theater, boy. You couldn't tell them nothing. They ain't never been into a dojo or school in their life. But I'm a master. I saw that one. Drunken style, you know. So you know what I mean. So you had those guys.
If I can add something to that, you know, like I said, I lived in New York for 8 years. The first couple of years, I remember going to one of the movies down on 42nd Street, and they had, you know, like Enter the Dragon, Fist of Fury, da 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 da. And I never will forget going in there trying to watch the movie. And I don't know if you remember The Last Dragon by Barry Gordy. You had cats in there running through there.
Leroy.
Running through there.
Leroy.
Yeah, like they were surely like show enough. They were like show enough, jumping all up on the stage in front of the theater. It was a black man. You know, I'll give nothing for that time. I'll give nothing for that time.
Yes.
That's funny.
Amazing.
Hey, that's how they used to be for Rocky. You know, they used to go to Rocky. Hey, they come out that movie feeling like they could whoop the world.
They did with the Rocky movies.
One of my favorite lines from that movie was after the main character fights all these guys, and then there's showing up. He shows up. He looks at him. He says, "You warmed up yet?"
You warmed
up yet? Yeah. That was one of those.
Kiss the Converse. You know what I'm talking about? Kiss my Converse. You feel it?
That is one of those movies.
That's the one.
And there's another series too. I don't know if you had to watch. It was pretty good. It was called Into the Badlands.
Oh yeah,
it was one of those things. And I forget. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the lead actor. You know, but you know, it showed. You know, it was like a apocalyptic, you know, society afterwards and everything. And they didn't have guns. They was using swords and knives and martial arts and everything. And it incorporated a lot of what y'all guys do into it as well. You know, it's an interesting series. So if y'all haven't seen that, check it out. It's entertaining. That's you know,
it's very good. I recommend it.
Into the Badlands. Yeah, because you know, I got, when we grew up and we was taking our classes, like when we were young, we used to meet in Pittsburgh. There's a park called Lake Victoria. There's a lake there. And there was a wall by the National Aviary. The aviary's there, but the space we used to use behind this wall was a grass area. And we used to train there. We used to have it, they used to call it midnight karate classes, okay? So you go down there at midnight, and you might go down there, and there might be 25 guys down there, you know. And there might be 3 different instructors teaching. Well, one of the instructors we had, a guy named Francis, you know, he was like second in command of the Pittsburgh Public Schools security. And he was one of them guys that was, you know, he was trained. He was a master. I didn't know who or what his lineage was or anything. I knew a few of them guys, but he used to walk. He didn't even have a vehicle. He didn't take the vehicle. He would walk from school to school to school through the city, you know. So we used to tease him every once in a while, you know, Kwai Chang K. Who you think you are? Who you think you are? Kung Fu, walking all these schools. But Francis, and a lot of people didn't know that. They see him and they thought, you know, he was something, but he was, you know, a bad boy when it came to that, to keep stuff off, you know, from happening. But we used to do that teaching, and that's what I'm saying. There was no love. I mean, there was all love. You know, there wasn't no, we meet at midnight behind here and train, you know, and it wouldn't, I mean, you get bruised up and everything else too, but, you know, it was just one of those things that we grew up on. And I like to see it get back to that, because the discipline aspect.
Yes.
Now, see, that's funny that you said that, speaking about discipline and a bad boy. Now, the legendary Bruce Lee made a statement that Kung Fu is the art of fighting without fighting, right? You know what I mean? And I want to ask all of you guys, what do you really think that means when he said that infamous line? You know what I mean?
Well, gosh, you know, in the context of the story, it was an opportunity for him to show how you can defeat an opponent without raising your fist, without actually engaging in a combative situation, but rather outsmarting them, like Bugs Bunny. You know, Bugs Bunny in a lot of ways is one of the best martial arts.
Oh yeah, He outsmarts him.
The boat on Enter the Dragon. You know, when he had the guy get on the little boat.
Yeah.
And the kids that he was harassed, and they let him hold on to the rope. By floating out there sinking.
Yeah.
And Bruce kept saying, "Don't let go of the rope." Or the
don't let go.
Don't let go of the rope.
Well, I'll share with you gentlemen that one of the things I was very fortunate in my journey is that the instructors that I had were also ministers of Christ, and you know, here it's Easter, and also I'll share this with you. Mike De La Vega, my original sensei, and a gentleman who taught me Kempo, he was a deep, devoted Christian, and the whole purpose of our martial art was not to learn to fight, but to learn to love, to be ministers of Christ. And in our logo, our symbol of the Hoi Shinkan School, you've got the covered fist, and you've got a cross right through the middle of it, because that was the essence of our journey. I remember the first time I was taking class with Mike. I just come out of Northwestern playing football, and I was so used to being everything regimented in the workout. And every couple of minutes, the horn would blow and you'd run to the next station. And De La Vega was doing something similar. Everything was on point, the way we were training. I said, "Man, how'd you figure this all out? How did you think about this?" And he said to me, "I don't think about it at all. When I come to class, I have no plan. I pray to God that he's going to tell me what to do. And then I teach you." And he said, that way, it's not my teaching, it's God's teaching.
Yeah.
And then with Leo Fong, obviously, Leo, a lot of people might not know this, but Leo was a lifetime minister. He came to the martial arts through his journey in Christ. He started as a young boy in Arkansas, being a boxer and learning how to defend himself. But he eventually became a Methodist and joined the Methodist ministry. And that was always part of his essence of his martial arts teaching, was the Bible. And at one point he told me he was going to work on a book. He didn't, get to it, but he talked to me a lot about it. And that was the martial art lessons from the Bible. And obviously David is the perfect example, how he was able to overcome a great opponent. Yeah. But there were little moments in there that a lot of people missed out on. One of those is when, before David went to battle, he was offered the armor of the king. He said, "Take my armor and wear it." And he said, "No, it doesn't feel right. It's not me. I'm just going to go out there with my sling and the word of God." And so Leo and I would talk about that, how when people try to change you to make you a better fighter, it really what you need to do is get more in tune with you, get more in tune with God, more in tune with the skills that you know are going to work. A punch is just a punch, a kick is just a kick, and a grappling choke out is just, it's the same no matter how you teach it, what name you give it. But are you in tune with it? And are you a champion of justice? Because if you are, you're unbeatable.
Yeah. That's true, Adam. That's true. That's true.
How many different styles of Kung Fu do you guys know? Just over the years of you guys just doing it, is it?
How many did you study?
Yeah, how many like different styles and different things out there that you've learned over the years or even heard of that we might not be aware of?
For me, it was boxing, Goju-Ryu, and Serrata Eskrima as a young child from my dad. But I went to his teachers as I got older. So as far as my experience, boxing, Goju-Ryu, and Serrata Eskrima under the late Grandmaster Angel Caballos. That's me.
Okay.
All right. I was mine was boxing, three different Chinese Kempo, Taekwondo, Capoeira. I did some Shorinji Kempo as well, and a little bit of Shotokan. I have maybe about one or two others that I dabbled in, but that was again in the small circle jiu-jitsu.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a gumbo over there.
Gumbo.
Hey, you know you got to put the right seasonings in the gumbo for it to taste right.
That's a fact. Oh man, how about you, Adam? Yeah.
Adam.
Adam, how about you?
Well, my first, really the foundation of my martial arts is my father. He was a United States naval officer, a Navy officer, and so United States military, training was and conduct was what I was taught from a child. My brother joined the Kotaka's International Karate Federation, the IKF, back in Hawaii, and he became a black belt. I trained for a while there, didn't reach black belt with Kotaka, but got more into football. And then it was Mike De La Vega with the Hawaii Shinkan Okinawan Kempo Karate Dojo. But Okinawan Kempo, as De La Vega would teach it, was karate, kabuto, jiu-jitsu, and of course the encompassing Kempo, Ryukyu Kempo. And then, but he also was a Kaji Kempo guy. He was part of the original Kaji Kempo school. So the Kaji Kempo is there as well. And then when I met Liu Fong, I emptied my cup and received the tea, and I trained extensively with him in the Wei Kundo, Chi Feng, and Modern Eskrima. And then over the years, I've had the honor to work with a number of different people, like Cam Yuen with Yuen Method, and he of course is the Thai Mantis and Shaolin Kung Fu, and then Bill Risaki and Gene LaBelle. Gene's another really good friend, and his partner, Gokar Chevechian. I've had an opportunity to work with him and worked with Bob, of course.
You guys got a lot in common. That's interesting.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Like
that's real interesting. How about you, Palaka?
Well, Hawaiian Kempo from back home. I judo and my jiu-jitsu. And then my Kali Eskrima from the same teacher that I took my Kempo system from. So it's mostly Kempo, and of course my family, the Hawaiian art from my family system. There is the way I explain where we learned it is one of the four uncles of is my fifth great grandfather, which is Heulu, which is Heulu. He was one of Kamehameha's top strategists in the Hawaiian art, and he was one of them that his guys to train Kamehameha in the acts of fighting, empty hand, and but also finding with the healing, and learning how to manipulate the muscle, pulling out, and just doing what I needed to. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
From Hawaii. Everything that I was taught was from back home.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dope, man. Now
If
go
I
ahead,
may,
Alex.
I'll share a quick thing that Leo shared with me that he told me it changed his life. And when he shared this story with me, it changed my life. So he was, Leo was a boxer. That was his essence. Whenever he got into a sparring situation, he just fell back to being a boxer and he would just throw a jab and a hook and right cross. But he was enamored with learning Kung Fu. So he was training with Lo Bun and also with T.Y. Wong in Chinatown. And he was training with Jimmy and Bruce at Jimmy's house. He was also training in Muda Kwan Tang Sudo. He was also taking jiu-jitsu classes, learning jiu-jitsu. And then he also was still boxing. He was training at the Sacramento State boxing team and training with them. And he would go over and hang out with Jimmy and Bruce. And one night, Bruce and he went for a drive to go around town, look at all the other schools, or as Bruce called it, let's go slumming. So as they were driving back to Oakland over the Bay Bridge, as they were driving over the Bay Bridge, Leo was sitting there, and Bruce said to him, "Hey, Leo, how come you're running around town training with all these other guys?" And Leo said, "Well, I'm looking for the ultimate. I'm looking for the ultimate martial art." And Bruce tapped him on the chest and said, "Hey, man, the ultimate's inside of you." And then he went on to talk a little technical stuff. He said, "Hey, listen, you take your boxing skills, you use the trapping that I'm teaching you. Once you get the guy, you take him to the ground with the grappling, and you know, when you have to kick, you use those Korean kicks, as they would call it back then. Use your Korean kicks." He said, "That's where it's at. That's the ultimate." Of course, he was literally describing MMA.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. But what really connected for Leo was that saying, "The ultimate is inside of you."
Yeah.
Don't go looking for someone else to find the spirit of God inside of you. Everybody has inside of them the great martial artists, the great knowledge, the greatest teachers inside of you. And so rather than continuing to look outside of ourselves for someone who's going to share, work on yourself, work on being a better person, work on your basic foundation skills and your conditioning to be truly fit and ready to fight. And that is a great martial artist.
Yes.
Oh man. Like what else? That's a mic drop right there.
Yeah, that's a mic drop. That is. That is.
Hey, Leo had a way of doing that. Leo Fong is a guy. He mic drop you all day, man. I'm telling you.
You know what I'm saying? What else can you say after that, man? I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you guys for coming through, giving us your amazing stories, your experiences. It's really feeding the culture, and that's what we hear. We definitely gonna have to spin a block because this is very, very interesting, and I love the mind state of you gentlemen. Because in order for you guys to reach so many heights in your careers, when we talk about martial art, you have to be mentally sound, physically sound, spiritually sound. It is not easy, and you guys are representations of the culture. So I want to thank you guys
for coming through.
Giving us your energy, man. We really do appreciate it. Okay?
Address the Culture is a place where you can always come to address the culture.
Absolutely.
You know, if you got anything you want to address, like Darren and Palaka was talking about again, we spoke, and Adam, I don't know if you're familiar with the situation with the cemeteries in Hawaii, how they're moving them and putting commercial property on.
Yeah.
You know, without letting the families know. You know, they're not properly moving the bodies. So we've been on Puiki Cemetery for a while. And then Darren came up and said, what's the other one, Darren, that you said?
Which one?
The cemetery that they are disturbing the stones.
Yes, I believe Tasialo found out that they're trying to encroach on one of his uncle's cemeteries, right?
That's right. Tasi had that.
So if Tasi's still on here, maybe
he fell out. He dropped out. So
he dropped out.
He wanted to give everybody else a chance to go. So,
but you know, between Puiki and Bradford's sixth great grandmother, buried underneath the street behind Bishop Museum. And all he's got is the tea leaf marker of where, to find her in the street. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Wow. So we've been shedding light on that too. You know, and that's something that goes on throughout the country. You know, I mean, Hawaii is just where it's been tipped, but it's been happening to veterans. When I was in D.C., Washington, they found out in Virginia that bodies from veterans were dead, thrown in the dumps and stuff. So I mean, so that's something that goes on that has to be addressed. You know, there's no respect. And it goes with the age that we talked about with this group, with the thin-skinned people, you know, the people that you can't tell to do nothing, but can't do nothing. So it's a shame, but that's the direction that, you know, this younger generation is going. And we got to try to, you know, just put the information out there. We might not reach everybody, but if we can reach a few people and turn them around,
definitely,
and we know we're doing the right thing.
Right,
definitely.
exactly.
Absolutely. So again, we want to thank you guys for coming through.
Thank
you know
you.
what I mean? Now, what we're going to do, we're going to pay us some bills, and me and Pstock going to be right back to close out the show. Right here on the Just the Culture.
Just the Culture.
Thank you, guys.
Aloha. Happy Easter.
Aloha. Happy
PALAKA. Pstock. Big Tone. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dressing the culture, I'm adjusting the culture, huh? Adjusting the culture, I'm adjusting the culture, huh? Dressing the culture, I'm adjusting the culture, huh? Dressing the culture, I'm adjusting the culture. We gon' talk about it. Come adjust the culture, we gon' talk about it. Come adjust the culture, we gon' talk about it. Come adjust the culture, we gon' talk about it. Come and adjust the culture, huh?
Big Wall, that was powerful show right there.
Yes.
And we like it. I love these shows. I love these men. They come through and they're sharing their history, their stories, you know, and these are their histories that, you know, from their experience, like Professor HUNDON talking about 35 years, you know, with Wally J, his master, and then they try to erase that from the history, you know. So that right there, you know, these things need to be told and heard. You know, it doesn't take nothing away from his legacy. It's just that they tried to, you know.
When he said that, like it, it kind of did something to me. You know what I mean? Like I could tell that affected him. You know what I mean?
It would affect you. Yeah.
Absolutely. When we talk about 35 years,
30, that's a long time.
Man, come on, man. Working up under somebody, and you know, it becomes bigger than teaching. It becomes
family.
Father and son relationship.
That's family.
So them erasing his history, it was bigger than that. It wasn't just about him, you know, and as far as learning, it was the relationship that he had with Grandmaster Jay.
Yeah.
And you could tell the way he speaks of it, the way he talks of it, it was bigger than that. You know what I mean? So the fact that throughout what we do and how we do that color affects you trying to better yourself and become physically, mentally, spiritually inclined and create relationships that goes beyond what we understand. You know, I could really tell that affected him in such a traumatic way. You know what I mean? To this day. You know what I mean? I hear it in the tone in his voice.
The voice, yeah.
And that's why I wanted to ask that question, because we're not ducking no smoke. And I know being a certain color, a certain race on this planet, you have less options. You have less opportunities. You know what I mean? Everything comes with a little bit more difficulty. You know, it don't matter how hard certain situation is, it's harder when you're a certain color. So for him to speak out and acknowledge that was amazing. Shouts out to him, you know what I mean, for continuing, and everybody on our panel who has trials and tribulations. Shouts out, man. It just further lets me know how dope and amazing you guys are and how you continue to push the culture.
Keep striving. Yeah, that's what it is. So stay tuned, stay locked. Definitely leave comments. Let us know what you want to hear. You know, want to hear more of, see more of. Definitely, you know, leave a comment, subscribe. You know, drop in. We're gonna be bringing you more of these jewels of panels of these martial artists that you heard it. You know, we've been how long have we been interviewing and had PALAKA on, and we never knew he was breaking bricks like that. I didn't know.
No,
I didn't know. No. So you know that's huge. You know, so that they hear that stuff, and that's real. That's what he used to do. You see Darren laughing and shaking his head. Yeah, he's busting bricks with his fingers in a shot glass and not busting the shot glass. Get out of here. That stuff, man. So you're only going to hear that here on Address the Culture.
Right. You already know. So tap in, stay in tune with us. Like P said, like, comment, subscribe, join the culture gang. So anytime we drop any kind of content, you'll be the first one to get it. And like I always say, time is something that you can't get back. So we appreciate y'all coming through, spinning the block, and giving us some of y'all. So until next week, I'm your boy Big Wall.
I'm your man Pstock. Aloha.
And this is Address the Culture. And like we always say, your culture makes you who you are. So make sure they respect it. We're going to catch you on the next episode. We up out of here.
Peace.
Darren, the big dog, he's the plug.
And I never forgot the first lesson. I was really
before he took your legs away.
Yeah, before he struck me here everywhere, then demonstrated me that you have not the legs, so you need the den. But yeah. In that moment, I understood that my Wing Chun was good, but not so good, you know. San Miguel Eskrima is a secondary style. Okay, in reality, secondary style of Eskrima of God.
The duck egg?
The duck eggs, yeah. You didn't need the balloon?
You didn't. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Please. One time and no more. One time and no more. You know. After eating the eggs in the Philippines, now I have another problem here in Italy too. You know, I need to defend the bar on the beach of Sardinia Island, and a lot of families, very small families working in this bar on the beach. But the European guys wanna put the hands on the on the Sardinian beach. So for me, I need to defend them, but I cannot use the scream at that time. So.
What's going on, y'all? It's your girl, Lady Luck, and I'm here with the homie Big Wall, and you are now tuned in to Address the Culture, where we're addressing everything in the culture. Keep it locked.
Addressing the culture, I'm addressing the culture, huh? Addressing the culture, I'm addressing the culture, huh? Addressing the culture, I'm addressing the culture, huh? Addressing the culture, I'm addressing the culture. We gon' talk about it. Come address the culture, we gon' talk about it. Come address the culture, we gon' talk about it. Come address the culture, we gon' talk about it. Come and address the culture, huh?
Young and AZ, man. Stay tuned in, man. We just getting started, man. We addressing the culture.